echolocation. I guess we've all used our traditional tracking skills. My name is John Scott. I'm a descendant of the Ningai people of central Queensland, which is northeastern Australia. My family, Aboriginal side of my family, were referred to as freshwater Murrays. My grandmother, my father was born on a Catholic mission, not far from the traditional lands. Before I joined the UN, I actually spent 15 years in Aboriginal education, working in the remote communities in the far north of Australia, and in particular the Torres Strait, the islands between Papua New Guinea and mainland Australia. But these days I'm working with the UN, and I'm with the Convention on Biological Diversity, and I'm the Program Officer for Article 8J, which requires that the parties of the Convention, which is almost every government in the world, must respect, promote and preserve traditional knowledge, preserve and promote traditional knowledge with the approval of the knowledge holders, which has been interpreted as prior and informed consent through the various decisions. Part of this, of course, is working closely with Indigenous representatives to develop education materials with two main purposes. One is to inform Indigenous communities about our work so that they can effectively participate in the Convention's processes, including the working group on Article 8J, and also the current hot topic, which is the working group on access to genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge and equitable sharing of benefits arising from that. So I'm also, as well as the Program Officer for Article 8J and related provisions, the focal point for Indigenous peoples and local communities at the Convention. I'd like to talk to you about what we're planning to do this year and next year. Today is the International Day of Biological Diversity, so we always use it because it occurs in New York during the Permanent Forum to raise awareness about the important role of Indigenous peoples, our traditional knowledge, and the conservation, sustainable use of biological diversity. And next year we have the UN has declared next year as the International Year of Biological Diversity, which allows us to work with the Permanent Forum again to raise awareness amongst Indigenous peoples and local communities, but also throughout the general public about the important role that Indigenous peoples and our traditional knowledge plays in conservation, sustainable use of biological diversity. So my work is guided, of course, by the decisions that are made by 192 governments, and they have to make decisions by consensus. But Indigenous peoples work closely through our processes to make sure their voices are effectively heard, to shape the sorts of decisions that come out, so that we can all pursue our common goals together. But currently, I have a decision, and this is guiding my work for the next 2 years. And that is to develop alternate means of communicating public information on traditional knowledge. You can see it's quite a long decision, I'm summarising it, in order to ensure the effective participation of Indigenous and local communities, women and youth at local, national and international levels, while supporting the development of Indigenous and local communities of their own media tools. And I'm very glad that the indigenousportal.com is here, because I'll mention those in a moment. You can say it also asks me to develop these sorts of materials in diverse formats: songs, posters, animation, film, audio for community radio, and also we're planning to do this in diverse languages. The UN has 6 official languages, and as well as that, we need to consider Indigenous languages. Also, I have another decision that complements this, which requests the Executive Secretary to draw attention to the important role of Indigenous and local communities in activities related to next year, and to do so with the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, to explore opportunities for common activities as related to information exchange and awareness raising under the guidance of the Bureau. The Bureau are 6 member states of the Convention that we interact with in between the governing body, so that the member states stay involved in our work. So that's basically, we call this our mandate. This actually defines what I'm allowed to do for the next 2 years. up until October 2010. So at the moment, I've just embarked on a process where we're developing a menu of activities and a draft concept note, which I will be sending to the Indigenous and local community working group on, we call it CEPA, but CEPA stands for Community Education and Public Awareness. So of course, after it goes to our Indigenous collaborators, we incorporate the advice. I send it to the Bureau, which are the 6 member parties of the convention, and after they've approved the activities, we then draw up the terms of reference for each task or product and engage, where possible, of course, Indigenous consultants to develop products. Then we encourage the consultants, while they're developing the products, to work closely with the Indigenous working group on CEPA in the product development. And we're running out of time because already we're supposed to produce some products by the end of this year. After they're developed, we'll be distributing them to 132 member states through the national focal points, but also through Indigenous media and to the Indigenous and local community representatives who follow the CBD processes. We work with a lot of large representative Indigenous organisations that also endeavour to disseminate information that we supply to them. Next year we're asked to showcase these products at high-profile events, including but not limited to the opening of the International Year on Biodiversity at UNESCO at the end of January in Paris, the 9th session of the Permanent Forum here in New York, a global conference on biological and cultural diversity, which will be held in July in Montreal, and the governing body, which we call the Conference of the Parties, COP10, when it meets in October in Japan at the end of 2010. So these are some of the events we're looking at showcasing that. I guess I should mention we rely on voluntary donations for this, and the government of Spain gave us €28,000 last year and €28,000 this year. So that gives us about €54,000 to develop a range of products. And next year, we had this for 3 years in a row. Next year, the €28,000 will be used to distribute and showcase these products at these big meetings around the world, and also any other meetings that people think would be useful, as well as distributing the products to Indigenous organisations and also the government's national focal points. Okay, so they're the high-profile